Imagine going for NYSC camp and meeting the absolute love of your life. I mean, your Prince Charming, only to realize that life had other plans for you. The journey to Delta State began with suffering. When Timi Briggs climbed into the overloaded commercial bus at Mile 1 Park in Port Harcourt, he already regretted obeying the NYSC call-up letter. The bus was carrying 14 passengers, though it was only built for 8. A woman with 3 children occupied 2 seats. A young man carried a live chicken inside a carton that had holes on every side. The chicken appeared to hate everybody equally. Timi sat by the window, praying for peace. The prayer lasted 7 minutes. By the time they reached Delta, his shirt was stained with dust, sweat, and what he strongly suspected was chicken poop. "Wonderful," he muttered. "NYSC service has not started though, but the nation had already served me breakfast." The woman beside him laughed. "My son, if this journey has not killed you, camp cannot." He wished she was right. Timi was 24 years old, tall, dark, and blessed with a kind of face that attracted attention even when he wanted none. He had studied mechanical engineering at the University of Port Harcourt. Since graduation, life had not gone exactly as planned. His father had retired from the civil service with more complaints than savings. His mother, on the other hand, sold wrappers and fabrics in the market. His younger sisters were waiting for him to become successful so they could proudly tell the whole church. Unfortunately, success had not yet received his address. Still, Timi carried himself with quiet confidence. He believed that life would eventually improve if he kept moving forward. What he did not know was that the person who would change everything was already on her own difficult journey towards the same camp. Aisha Lawal arrived 3 hours later. Unlike Timi's journey, hers came with enough family drama to fuel a whole television series. Her mother cried before she left Kano. Her aunt cried after her mother had stopped crying. Her grandmother also cried because everyone else was crying. Even the neighbors looked emotional, though nobody knew exactly why. Aisha sat quietly through it all. She loved her family, yet she knew they worried too much. "Remember your prayers," her mother had said. "I will." "Do not follow bad friends." "I won't." "Do not fight." "I won't." "Do not talk to strange men." Aisha sighed. "I mean, everybody is a strange man before you know them." Her mother gasped. Her aunt gasped. Her grandmother gasped louder. Aisha immediately wished she had remained silent. At 23, she had mastered the act of causing trouble without intending to. She was intelligent, curious, kind-hearted, and often too honest for her own good. Her dream was simple. She wanted to help people. Not because it sounded noble, but because she genuinely cared. She believed life became meaningful when people help one another. The camp gate swallowed hundreds of corps members every hour. People arrived carrying bags, buckets, mattresses, provisions, cooking gas, and enough luggage to suggest permanent relocation. Voices rose everywhere. Soldiers backed orders. Vendors shouted prices and whistles blew. While some corps members looked excited, others looked as though they had been kidnapped. Timi belonged to the second group. He dragged his box across the parade ground while searching for the registration center. The sun was unforgiving. His shirt clung to his skin and sweat ran down his face. Then a sudden wind swept through the camp. Papers flew into the air and several people screamed. One particular file escaped completely and began dancing across the dusty ground. Aisha chased it, but the file ran faster. She chased it even harder, but the file refused to cooperate. A crowd watched the strange race. Finally, the file struck Timi's leg. He picked it up. Aisha arrived seconds later, breathing heavily. "Please tell me that's mine." Timi glanced at the name, Aisha Lawal. Relief flooded her face. "Oh, thank God." He handed it over. "You ran surprisingly fast." "I wasn't running." "You look like you were." "I was negotiating." "With Pepper?" "Pepper can be stubborn." Timi laughed for the first time that day. Aisha noticed his smile transformed his face. A dangerous discovery, one she quickly ignored. "Thank you. You're welcome." Neither of them expected to see each other again, but camp had other plans. By evening, they discovered that they belonged to the same platoon. The next morning, they found themselves standing beside each other during registration. The day after that day, they met again at breakfast. Then, during sanitation duty, during orientation lectures, and during evening parades. At some point, coincidence stopped looking like coincidence. One afternoon, they sat beneath a tree after drills, both exhausted and hungry, wondering whether soldiers enjoyed human suffering. "I think they wake up every morning looking for new ways to punish us," Aisha said. Timi nodded. "I agree. Today, they made us march for 1 hour. But that was only exercise." "No." She shook her head. "Exercise has mercy. That thing did not." Timi busted into laughter. Nearby corps members turned to stare. Aisha smiled, and the sound suited him. As days passed, their friendship grew naturally. They talked about family, school, dreams, and failures, and also childhood memories. This made them discover how different they were. Timi grew up in Port Harcourt, among noisy streets and endless traffic, while Aisha grew up in Kano, where family traditions shaped daily life. Timi loved football, but Aisha loved books. He could barely cook, and she considered that a national emergency. "You mean you graduated from the university without learning how to cook?" "I can cook." "And what can you cook?" Timi thought carefully. "Boiled water." Aisha stared at him. "You are useless." "Ah, that hurts." "Of course it should." For some reasons, conversations never became boring. Hours disappeared whenever they talked, and slowly the camp around them faded. The noise, drills, stress, and everything seems easier whenever they were together. Neither of them admitted what was happening. Perhaps they were afraid. They knew that camp romance rarely survived, but yet something was growing between them, something neither of them could stop. One night, during the campfire gathering, corps members sat around dancing flames while music floated into the dark sky. Some people sang, others danced, and some attempted dance moves that should have been reported to the police. Laughter filled the air. Timi and Aisha sat slightly apart from the crowd, watching and talking slowly. The fire reflected in her eyes, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then Aisha asked quietly, "What happens after camp?" Timi looked toward the flames. The question carried more weight than it appeared. "I don't know." She nodded. "My mother says people enter your life for a reason and leave sometimes." The answer lingered between them, and for the first time, both of them felt afraid. Not of what existed between them, but of losing it. Neither of them noticed the figure standing far away in the darkness, watching, observing, and holding a phone. A camera flashed briefly and a photograph was taken, and then another photograph. The stranger smiled before disappearing into the night, far from the music and from the laughter, carrying something that would soon change everything. The morning of the departure arrived quietly, carrying the kind of sadness that nobody expected when the camp first began. 3 weeks earlier, many corps members had entered the orientation camp as strangers. Now they move around the parade ground like people preparing to leave a village they had built together. Everywhere there were promises. "Don't forget me. I will call you. We will create a WhatsApp group." People exchanged phone numbers with the excitement of politicians signing peace agreements. Some cried openly, while others pretended not to. Timi belonged to the second group. Aisha also belonged to the second group. Neither of them wanted to show how much the departure and separation hurt. Aisha held her posting letter in one hand, while Timi held his in the other hand. The papers felt heavier than they should. "I think they made a mistake," Aisha said. Timi forced a smile. "Which part?" "The part where they decided to send us to opposite ends of the world. They enjoy suffering." "I'm serious. So am I." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The reality was finally sinking in. The camp had protected them from distance, family, and from real life. Outside those gates, everything would change. A whistle sounded and the drivers started their engines. People began unboarding. Aisha looked away first because she knew her eyes were becoming very wet. "My mother will laugh at me." "Why?" "Because I told her I was coming to camp for service." "But you did." She smiled weakly. "Now look at me." Timi laughed softly. "Then don't tell her. She knows me too well." The buses began to move slowly and reluctantly like stubborn cattle. Aisha climbed aboard, while Timi remained outside. For a brief moment, their eyes met through the window. Both of them waved because they needed to. Then the buses disappeared beyond the gate. The dust settled and the camp became empty. Distance looked small when compared to determination. Every morning started with messages. "Good morning. Have you eaten? How was school today? How is your village?" Sometimes they spoke before sunrise and after midnight. The calls became part of their daily life, like breathing, prayer, and sunrise. Aisha arrived at her place of primary assignment in a small community. The village welcomed her warmly. Children followed her through the streets, and the women greeted her with smiles. The old men asked endless questions. "Copper, where are you from?" "Kanu." "Kanu? Yes, that is far, very far." They nodded wisely as though she had personally created the distance. Life moved slowly there. The school where she taught had cracked walls and several desks were broken. The library contained more dust than books, and yet the children were eager to learn. That alone gave her hope. She threw herself into the work. Each evening, she called Timi. Sometimes while sitting outside beneath the moon, and sometimes while hiding from mosquitoes that seemed determined to finish what malaria had started. Meanwhile, Timi's experience was different. The community where he was posted was very far. The road leading there looked abandoned by the government and civilization, and this made the bus transporting the corps members to break down twice. By the time Timi reached his destination, he was too tired. The school assigned to him stood under the scorching sun like an old man carrying years of hardship. Electricity came when it wished, and water behaved like a celebrity. Network appeared briefly before disappearing again. On some days, he climbed a hill simply to send messages. One evening, Aisha called. The line connected after several attempts. Hello? Timi? Can you hear me? Barely. Wait. Silence followed. Then his voice returned. How about now? You sound like you are calling from the moon. I climbed a tree. Aisha blinked. You what? I climbed a tree. Why? Because of network. There was a pause. And then there was a pause. Then she laughed so hard that she nearly dropped the phone. You climbed a tree to call me? I nearly fell. Timi, if I break my leg, appreciate my sacrifice. For several minutes, she could not stop laughing. The sound warmed him. And for a while, everything felt normal again. Then trouble arrived. Trouble often enters quietly before showing its true face. Back in Kano, Aisha's brother Kabiri received the photograph taken during camp. The picture showed Timi and Aisha sitting close together near the campfire. Nothing inappropriate or scandalous, but yet it was enough. Kabiri stared at it for a long time. His face hardened. He loved his sister. Unfortunately, his love often dressed itself as control. He believed that the war was too dangerous and that people could not be trusted. Most of all, he believed it was his duty to protect Aisha, whether she wanted protection or not. The photograph convinced him that something was happening beyond his knowledge. He called immediately. Aisha answered cheerfully, Brother, who is he? The question struck like a stone. What? The man in the picture. Her heart skipped. What picture? Immediately, Kabiri sent it. Seconds later, she saw the image. Fear settled inside her stomach. It's not what you think. What should I think? He is my friend. Only your friend? Aisha hesitated. The silence became a mistake, and Kabiri noticed it immediately. From that day forward, his calls increased, his questions multiplied, and his suspicion grew also. Aisha felt trapped between loyalty to family and loyalty to her own heart. She began hiding things, small things at first, and then larger ones later. Meanwhile, distance continued doing its work. Calls became shorter, schedules became busier, and exhaustion became common. Sometimes one person wanted to talk, while the other desperately wanted sleep. Sometimes messages remained unanswered for hours. Hours became arguments, and arguments became misunderstandings. One evening, Aisha waited for Timi's call. The agreed time had passed. 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, and nothing. She called repeatedly, but his phone remained unreachable. Fear slowly became anger, and by midnight, she was convinced that he was ignoring her. The next morning, when she opened social media, a new post had appeared. Several core members had attended a community outreach, and in the photograph, she saw Timi standing beside a beautiful girl. The girl was smiling, and Timi was smiling too. Aisha stared at the screen. Her chest tightened. Something painful moved inside her. Jealousy. The emotion she always believed she was too mature to feel. She immediately called, and Timi's phone connected. Timi? Hello? Who is Sandra? There was silence. And then there was silence. Not because he was guilty, but because he was confused. The confusion made everything worse. I say, who is Sandra? The lady in the pictures. Then realization dawned. Oh, she is another core member. Another core member? Yes. Aisha's voice became cold. You seem very close. Timi sighed. The conversation was already slipping away, far beyond the reach of logic and explanation. Neither of them noticed that distance was slowly becoming a third person in their relationship. A silent visitor sitting between them, listening, waiting, and growing stronger each day. The weeks that followed the argument about Sandra were very difficult. Not because Timi and Aisha stopped talking completely. They still spoke, exchanged messages, and still asked about each other's health. But yet, something important had changed. Their conversations no longer flowed like a river after rainfall. Now they moved like water tap between stones, careful, slow, and uncertain. Aisha noticed it first. Before now, she could call Timi at any time. But now, she often stares at her phone, wondering whether she should. Before now, she always looked forward to his messages. But now, she found herself reading them twice, searching for hidden meanings. Trust had disappeared. It had simply become fragile, like a clay pot that already carried a crack. One afternoon, she sat beneath a mango tree outside the school compound, marking exercise books while her pupils played football nearby. The children kicked the ball with the enthusiasm of professional athletes. The ball itself looked older than most of them. A small boy named Musa ran toward her. Copper Aisha, yes? You forgot to mark my book. Aisha checked the pile. No, I did not. The boy smiled. Please check again. She opened the exercise book, but everything had already been marked. The boy grinned. You are correct. Of course I am. I only wanted to talk to you. All the other children bursted into laughter. Aisha laughed too. Moments like this helped her to forget her worries, but only for a little while. That evening, she received another call from Kabiri. Her brother had become more persistent since receiving the photograph. Every conversation felt like an interrogation. Aisha, good evening. How is your service? It's fine. Have you spoken to that young man recently? Her smile disappeared. Brother, I ask you a question. Yes. Kabiri sighed. The sound carried disappointment. You are becoming stubborn. No, I'm becoming an adult. The line became silent. Those words were dangerous. In many families, truth was welcome until it challenged authority. Kabri finally spoke. I only want what is best for you. I know. Then listen to me. Aisha looked toward the fading sky. I always listen. The conversation ended politely, but neither of them felt satisfied. Far away in another local government, Timi faced troubles of his own. The school term had become busier. The principal liked assigning extra work to core members because it saved time. Teachers disappeared for days without explanation. Whenever something needed to be done, Timi's name somehow appeared. One afternoon, he sat beneath a tree outside the staff room, correcting notebooks while muttering complaints to himself. Sandra arrived carrying a bottle of soft drink. You look like somebody whose village land has been stolen. Timi accepted the drink. That is because this school wants to kill me. You say that every week. One day I will be correct. Sandra laughed. She had become one of his closest friends in that local government. Not because she planned it, but because loneliness often creates friendship where none were expected. They worked together and attended community events together. They helped each other survive difficult days and nothing more. At least that was what Timi believed. The problem with appearances is that they rarely ask permission before creating trouble.